The distant hum of machinery filled the air as Aria Novak made her way through the winding corridors of Outpost Epsilon. The space station, once a bustling hub of interstellar commerce, now stood as a silent sentinel at the edge of human-controlled space. Aria, a seasoned engineer with a knack for breathing life into forgotten technology, had been dispatched to salvage what she could from the abandoned outpost. Her footsteps echoed off the metal walls, the sound seeming to amplify the station's emptiness. Aria's dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her olive skin bore the marks of countless hours spent tinkering with stubborn machinery. She adjusted the strap of her tool bag, the weight of it a comforting presence on her shoulder. As she rounded a corner, a faint noise caught her attention. It was barely perceptible, a soft whimper that seemed out of place in the mechanical silence of the station. Aria paused, her hand instinctively moving to the multi-tool at her belt. She stood still, straining her ears to catch the sound again. There it was, a quiet, high-pitched whine that sent a shiver down her spine. It didn't sound mechanical. In fact, it sounded almost alive. Cautiously, Aria moved towards the source of the noise. Her heart raced as she approached a sealed door, the control panel beside it dark and lifeless. With practiced ease, she pried open the panel and began to rewire the circuits. After a few tense moments, the door slid open with a reluctant groan. The room beyond was dimly lit, emergency lights casting an eerie blue glow over discarded equipment and forgotten cargo. Aria's eyes scanned the room, searching for the source of the sound. At first, she saw nothing out of the ordinary. Then, a flicker of movement caught her eye. In the far corner, partially hidden behind a fallen storage crate, were two small, quivering forms. Aria approached slowly, her hand outstretched in a gesture of peace. As she drew closer, she could hardly believe her eyes. Huddled together were two creatures unlike anything Aria had ever seen. They were small, no larger than a house cat, with bodies covered in iridescent scales that shimmered in the low light. Their heads were slightly elongated, with large, luminous eyes that seemed to glow with an inner light. But what struck Aria most was the way they trembled, their entire bodies shaking as if they were freezing cold. "Hey there," Aria said softly, crouching down to appear less threatening. "It's okay, I'm not going to hurt you." The creature's eyes fixed on her, filled with a mixture of fear and curiosity. One of them let out another whimper, and Aria's heart melted. Whatever these beings were, they were clearly scared and alone. Slowly, carefully, Aria reached out her hand. The creatures flinched at first, but then, to her surprise, the bolder of the two stretched out its neck, sniffing at her fingers. Its nose was cool and slightly damp, reminding Aria of a dog's. "That's it," she cooed. "See, nothing to be afraid of." As she spoke, Aria's mind raced. What were these creatures? How had they ended up here, on an abandoned space station at the edge of known space? And why wouldn't they stop shaking? The second creature, seemingly emboldened by its companion's bravery, inched closer. Aria remained still, allowing them to investigate her at their own pace. As they drew nearer, she noticed more details about their strange anatomy. What she had initially thought were scales were actually more like feathers, each one iridescent and slightly translucent. Their paws were webbed, with delicate claws that looked more suited for swimming than walking. "You two are a long way from home, aren't you?" Aria murmured. As if in response, both creatures let out a synchronized chirp that resonated in a way that made Aria's skin tingle. She blinked in surprise, feeling a sudden wave of something. It wasn't quite emotion, but more like a vague impression of fear, confusion, and hope. Before she could ponder this strange sensation further, a loud clang echoed through the station. The creatures immediately pressed against Aria, their shaking intensifying. She instinctively wrapped her arms around them, feeling their rapid heartbeats against her chest. "Shh, it's okay," she whispered, even as her own pulse quickened. That sound hadn't been the normal settling of an old space station. It had sounded deliberate, like something, or someone, had entered Outpost Epsilon. Aria's mind raced. She was supposed to be alone here. The salvage company had assured her that the station was abandoned, that she would have weeks of uninterrupted work. So, who or what was out there? As if in answer to her unspoken question, a deep, resonant hum began to fill the air. It was a sound Aria recognized instantly, the activation of powerful energy shields. But the station's systems were supposed to be offline. Unless, we need to move, Aria said to the creatures, her voice urgent but low. Something tells me whoever's here isn't looking for spare parts. She scooped up the alien beings, cradling them against her chest. They offered no resistance, seeming to sense the urgency of the situation. As Aria rose to her feet, her eyes fell on a small cylindrical device partially hidden under some debris. Something about it tugged at her instincts. Without really knowing why, she grabbed it and shoved it into her tool bag. The hum of the energy shields grew louder, and Aria could swear she heard the faint echo of footsteps in the distance. Her heart pounding, she made for the door, the mysterious creatures held tightly in her arms. As she stepped into the corridor, Aria's mind whirled with questions and half-formed plans. Who was after these creatures? Why were they so important? And how in the universe was she going to get them, and herself, off this station alive? With the weight of the aliens in her arms and the unknown device in her bag, Aria Novak set off into the depths of Outpost Epsilon, unaware that her impromptu rescue mission was about to plunge her into an adventure beyond her wildest imagination. Aria's boots echoed softly against the metal floor as she navigated the labyrinthine corridors of Outpost Epsilon. The alien creatures in her arms had ceased their trembling, now eerily still as if sensing the need for silence. The distant hum of energy shields grew louder, punctuated by the occasional metallic clang that made Aria's heart race. She needed a plan. The station's layout flashed through her mind. Years of working on similar outposts had given her an intuitive understanding of their design. If she could make it to the auxiliary hangar, there might be a chance of finding a functional escape pod or shuttle. As Aria rounded a corner, she nearly collided with a tall, menacing figure clad in sleek black armor. Its helmet was adorned with pulsing blue lights, giving it an otherworldly appearance. For a split second, they both froze, equally surprised by the encounter. Then everything happened at once. The armored figure reached for a weapon at its hip. Simultaneously, the alien creatures in Aria's arms let out a high-pitched wail that seemed to vibrate through her very bones. The sound waves visibly distorted the air, and the armored assailant staggered backward, its movements suddenly jerky and uncoordinated. Aria didn't wait to see what would happen next. She bolted past the disoriented figure, her mind reeling from what she'd just witnessed. The creatures in her arms had some kind of sonic defense mechanism, one powerful enough to interfere with advanced technology. She sprinted through the corridors, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind her, she could hear the sounds of pursuit, heavy footsteps, and the crackle of energy weapons charging up. The aliens in her arms began to tremble again, more violently than before. "Hang in there, little ones," Aria panted as she ran. "We're almost there." As she approached the auxiliary hangar, Aria's hopes fell. The massive doors were sealed shut, the control panel beside them dark and lifeless. She skidded to a halt, her mind racing. There had to be a way in. Then she remembered the device in her bag. On instinct, she pulled it out. It was roughly cylindrical, covered in strange, swirling patterns that seemed to shift and move as she looked at them. As soon as the aliens saw it, they let out soft, melodic chirps. Aria held the device close to the control panel. To her amazement, the swirling patterns on its surface began to glow, and the panel flickered to life. The hangar doors groaned open, revealing a cavernous space beyond. She dashed inside, her eyes scanning the area for anything that could aid their escape. Most of the ships were in various states of disrepair, but in the far corner, a small, sleek shuttle caught her attention. It looked different from the standard human designs, more organic somehow. As Aria approached the shuttle, its hull seemed to ripple, as if responding to the presence of the alien creatures. A hatch spiraled open, inviting them inside. "Well," Aria murmured, "I guess this is our ride." She clambered into the shuttle, finding its interior just as strange and organic as its exterior. The control panel was a bewildering array of pulsing lights and unfamiliar symbols. Aria set the aliens down gently and started examining the controls, hoping her engineering expertise would help her decipher them. Suddenly, one of the creatures stretched out a delicate, webbed paw and touched a glowing symbol. The shuttle hummed to life, its systems activating in a cascade of light and sound. "Okay," Aria said, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. "I guess you know how to fly this thing better than I do." The sound of weapons fire echoed through the hangar. Aria looked up to see several armored figures pouring through the door, their weapons trained on the shuttle. "Time to go." Aria strapped herself into what she hoped was the pilot's seat, the aliens huddled close to her. She placed her hands on what looked like a control yoke, and to her surprise, she felt a strange connection form, as if the ship was interfacing directly with her mind. Trusting her instincts, Aria willed the shuttle to lift off. It responded instantly, rising smoothly into the air. The armored figures opened fire, but their shots seemed to dissipate harmlessly against the shuttle's hull. With a thought, Aria sent the shuttle surging forward. They burst out of the hangar and into the star-studded expanse of space. Behind them, Outpost Epsilon receded into the distance, growing smaller by the second. But their troubles were far from over. A sleek, predatory ship detached itself from the shadow of the station and began pursuit, its engines flaring bright against the darkness of space. Aria gripped the controls tighter, her jaw set in determination. "All right, you two," she said to the aliens, who were watching her with their large, luminous eyes. "Let's see what this ship can really do." As they plunged deeper into the unknown reaches of space, Aria couldn't help but feel a mix of terror and exhilaration. She had no idea where they were going or what challenges lay ahead, but looking at the remarkable creatures beside her and feeling the responsive power of the alien shuttle, she knew one thing for certain: this was the beginning of an extraordinary journey. The stars stretched into streaks of light as the shuttle leaped into faster-than-light travel, carrying them towards an uncertain but undoubtedly adventure-filled future. The vastness of space stretched out before them, an endless canvas of stars and swirling nebulae. Aria sat in the pilot's seat of the alien shuttle, her hands resting lightly on the controls. The ship seemed to respond to her thoughts as much as her physical inputs, creating a uniquely intuitive flying experience. Beside her, the two alien creatures had finally stopped shaking. They sat close together, their iridescent scales shimmering softly in the dim light of the cockpit. Aria glanced at them, a mix of wonder and concern in her eyes. "So," she said, breaking the silence that had fallen since their dramatic escape, "I suppose we should get to know each other, considering we're fugitives together now." The aliens tilted their heads in unison, their large, luminous eyes fixed on her. Aria couldn't shake the feeling that they understood far more than she realized. "I'm Aria," she continued, pointing to herself, "Aria Novak. And you too. Well, I guess I can't keep calling you creatures or aliens." As if in response, one of the beings let out a soft, melodic trill. The sound seemed to resonate in Aria's mind, creating an impression of something. It wasn't quite a word, but more like a feeling or a concept. "Zephyr," Aria said, the name coming to her lips almost unbidden. "Is that your name?" The creature that had made the sound bobbed its head in what looked remarkably like a nod. Its companion then made a similar sound, but with a slightly different pitch. "And you're Nova," Aria guessed, feeling the name form in her mind. The second creature chirped happily, its scales rippling with a soft blue glow. Aria couldn't help but smile. "Zephyr and Nova. Well, it's nice to meet you both officially." As she spoke, Aria noticed a change in the shuttle's ambient lighting. The walls seemed to pulse with a soft, comforting glow, as if the ship itself was responding to the positive interaction. "This ship," Arya mused, running her hand along the organic-looking control panel. "It's connected to you too, isn't it?" Zephyr and Nova exchanged a look, then turned back to Arya. They both placed a webbed paw on the console, and suddenly, Arya felt a rush of information flood her mind. Images, sensations, and concepts flashed through her consciousness, too fast to fully comprehend, but leaving her with a general understanding. The ship was alive, in a sense. It was grown, not built, using advanced biotechnology far beyond anything humans had developed, and it was intrinsically linked to Zephyr and Nova's species. Incredible, Arya breathed, her engineer's mind reeling at the implications. "Your people must be incredibly advanced." But as soon as she said it, a wave of sadness washed over her. It wasn't her own emotion, she realized, but one emanating from Zephyr and Nova. Through their connection with the ship, they were sharing their feelings with her. "You're alone," Arya said softly, understanding dawning. "You're not just lost, you're the last of your kind, aren't you?" Zephyr and Nova huddled closer together, their scales dimming slightly. Arya felt her heart ache for them. Without thinking, she reached out and gently stroked their heads. To her surprise, their scales were warm to the touch and softer than she expected. "I'm so sorry," she murmured, "but you're not alone anymore. I promise I'll do everything I can to keep you safe." As she spoke, Arya felt a surge of gratitude and affection from the aliens. The ship's interior brightened, reflecting the positive emotions. Their moment of connection was interrupted by a sharp beat from the console. Arya's attention snapped back to the controls, her eyes widening as she took in the information displayed. "Looks like our pursuers haven't given up," she said grimly. "There's a ship following our energy trail. We need to find somewhere to hide and regroup." Zephyr and Nova immediately perked up. They placed their paws on the console again, and Arya felt a stream of information flow into her mind. Coordinates, images of a dense asteroid field, and a sense of safety. "You know a place?" Arya asked, already adjusting their course based on the information she'd received. The aliens chirped affirmatively, their scales pulsing with determination. Arya nodded, a small smile playing on her lips despite the danger. "All right then, let's see what this ship can really do." As they sped towards the unknown sanctuary, Arya couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement mixed with her apprehension. In just a few short hours, her life had changed completely. She was now the protector of possibly the last members of an advanced alien species, flying a living ship through uncharted space, pursued by mysterious and dangerous forces. It was terrifying, yes, but as she looked at Zephyr and Nova, seeing the trust in their large eyes, Arya knew she wouldn't have it any other way. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The ship surged forward, carrying its unlikely crew towards their next adventure. As the stars streaked by outside, Arya, Zephyr, and Nova prepared themselves for whatever the universe might throw at them next. The asteroid field loomed before them, a chaotic dance of rock and ice illuminated by the distant glow of an aging star. Arya's hands moved deftly over the controls, guiding the living ship through the treacherous maze with a combination of skill and intuition. Zephyr and Nova sat alert beside her, their scales shimmering with nervous energy. "I hope you know what you're doing," Arya muttered, more to herself than her alien companions. As if in response, a holographic display flickered to life above the console. It showed a detailed map of the asteroid field, with a specific route highlighted in pulsing blue light. Arya raised an eyebrow, impressed. "Well, that's handy. You two are full of surprises, aren't you?" Following the map, Arya navigated deeper into the field. The asteroids grew denser, some as large as small moons. Just as Arya was beginning to wonder if they'd made a mistake, she saw it, a massive asteroid, easily twice the size of Outpost Epsilon, with a gaping chasm running across its surface. "Is that where we're headed?" she asked. Zephyr and Nova chirped in unison, their excitement palpable. As they approached, Aria noticed faint energy signatures emanating from within the chasm. It wasn't natural, someone or something had made this place. With practiced ease, Aria guided the ship into the chasm. The walls narrowed around them, plunging them into near darkness broken only by the soft bioluminescence of the ship's interior. Then suddenly, they emerged into a vast cavern hollowed out from the asteroid's core. Aria's jaw dropped. The cavern was a marvel of alien engineering. Crystalline structures lined the walls, pulsing with soft light. In the center floated what looked like a small city, interconnected spheres and spirals that seemed to defy gravity. "What is this place?" Aria breathed, awe evident in her voice. Zephyr and Nova exchanged a look, then placed their paws on the console. Once again, Aria felt a rush of information flood her mind. Images, sensations, and concepts flashed by, gradually coalescing into understanding. This was a sanctuary, she realized, a hidden outpost created by Zephyr and Nova's people, the Lumina, as they called themselves. It was one of many such refuges scattered throughout the galaxy, meant to preserve their species and culture in the face of some great calamity. But something had gone wrong. The Lumina, for all their advanced technology and profound connection to the universe itself, had miscalculated. The threat they had foreseen, a cosmic event of unimaginable proportions, had come sooner and struck harder than they had anticipated. Aria saw flashes of devastation, entire worlds consumed by roiling energy, the fabric of space-time itself warping and tearing. The Lumina had fought, using their mastery of energy and matter to try and stem the tide of destruction. But in the end, it hadn't been enough. Zephyr and Nova, she realized with a start, were more than just the last of their kind. They were the culmination of their species' last, desperate effort at survival. Within their genetic code was encoded the entirety of Lumina knowledge and culture, a living archive of a dying civilization. "That's why those people were after you," Aria said softly, looking at her small companions with new understanding. "You're not just refugees. You're the key to rebuilding your entire species." The aliens nodded solemnly, their large eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and determination. Aria felt the weight of their burden settle on her shoulders. She had stumbled into something far larger than she could have imagined, becoming the protector of not just two alien beings, but the last hope of an entire civilization. As the realization sank in, the cavern around them suddenly came to life. Lights flickered on, illuminating structures that had been hidden in shadow. Holographic displays sprang up, showing star charts, complex equations, and diagrams of technology beyond Aria's comprehension. "I guess the place recognized you," Aria mused, guiding their ship towards what looked like a docking area. As they settled into the dock, Zephyr and Nova grew visibly excited. They scampered to the ship's exit, looking back at Aria expectantly. She couldn't help but smile at their enthusiasm, despite the gravity of the situation. All right, she chuckled, getting up to follow them. "Let's see what this place has to offer." As the ship's hatch spiraled open, Aria took a deep breath. The air in the cavern was crisp and clean, with a faint metallic tang that reminded her of ozone. Gravity seemed to be slightly less than Earth normal, making her feel light on her feet as she stepped onto the dock. Zephyr and Nova bounded ahead, their webbed feet making soft pattering sounds on the smooth surface. They led Aria towards a large, spherical structure that pulsed with soft blue light. As they approached, a doorway materialized in the structure's surface. Aria hesitated for a moment, then stepped through, Zephyr and Nova at her heels. Inside, she found herself in a vast, circular room filled with swerving holographic displays and strange, organic-looking machines. "What is all this?" Aria asked, her engineer's mind buzzing with curiosity. In response, Zephyr and Nova approached a central pedestal. As they placed their paws on its surface, the room came alive. The holographic displays coalesced into a single massive image, a representation of the galaxy, with countless points of light indicating what Aria assumed were other luminous sanctuaries. But most of the lights were dim or flickering. Only a handful burned bright, and even as Aria watched, one of them winked out. "You're searching for survivors," Aria realized. "This place, it's not just a refuge, it's a beacon." Zephyr and Nova nodded, their expressions solemn. Through their connection, Aria felt their determination, their hope that somewhere out there, other Lumina had survived. But she also felt their fear of the unknown threat that had nearly wiped out their species, fear that it might find them again. As if on cue, an alarm blared through the sanctuary. The galactic map vanished, replaced by a view of the space outside the asteroid. A ship was approaching, the same one that had pursued them from Outpost Epsilon. Aria's heart raced. They had been found. But as she looked at Zephyr and Nova, seeing the resolve in their eyes, she knew this was far from over. This hidden sanctuary held secrets and power beyond her understanding. And now, it was up to her to help unlock its potential and protect the last hope of the Lumina. With determination setting her jaw, Aria turned to face the approaching threat. Whatever came next, she was ready to fight for her new friends and the incredible legacy they carried. The true adventure, she realized, was only just beginning. The sanctuary's alarms blared, that urgent tone echoing through the cavernous space. Aria's mind raced, assessing their options as the enemy ship drew closer. Zephyr and Nova huddled close to her, their scales pulsing with a mix of fear and determination. "Okay," Aria said, her voice steady despite the tension. "This place must have defenses, right? Some way to protect itself." The aliens chirped in affirmation, scampering towards a console that seemed to grow out of the floor. As they placed their paws on its surface, the room transformed. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing the approaching ship from multiple angles. Aria's eyes widened as she took in the details of their pursuer. The ship was unlike anything she'd seen before, a sleek, predatory design that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Its hull was covered in strange, shifting patterns that reminded her of the device she'd found on Outpost Epsilon. "They're using Luma technology," Aria realized with a start. But how? And why are they after you too? Before she could ponder further, Zephyr and Nova let out a series of urgent trills. The sanctuary's systems responded, and Aria felt a deep vibration rumble through the asteroid. Outside, a shimmering energy field sprang to life, encasing the entire sanctuary in a protective bubble. The enemy ship, however, didn't slow its approach. It fired a barrage of energy pulses that splashed against the shield, each impact sending ripples across its surface. "The shield won't hold forever," Aria muttered, her engineer's mind already calculating possibilities. "We need a plan." As if in response to her words, a new holographic display appeared before her. It showed schematics for what looked like weapon systems, advanced energy projectors integrated into the asteroid itself. But the systems were offline, their power cores depleted after millennia of disuse. Aria's eyes lit up with understanding. "The ship," she said, turning to Zephyr and Nova. "Our ship is powered by the same technology as this place, isn't it? We could use it to jump-start the defense systems." The aliens bobbed their heads enthusiastically, already moving towards the docking bay where they'd left their living ship. Aria sprinted after them, her mind working furiously to piece together a plan. As they reached the ship, another impact rocked the sanctuary. The shield was weakening, its glow flickering ominously. They didn't have much time. "All right," Aria said as she entered the ship, making her way to what she hoped was an access panel for the power systems. "I need you two to interface with the ship. Tell it we need to transfer power to the sanctuary's defenses. I'll handle the technical side." Zephyr and Nova complied, placing their paws on the ship's console. Aria felt the vessel come alive around her, its systems humming with energy. She worked quickly, rerouting power conduits and bypassing safety protocols. It was risky, but they were out of options. "Here goes nothing," Aria muttered, making the final connection. Power surged from the ship into the sanctuary systems. The lights flickered, and for a heart-stopping moment, Aria feared she'd miscalculated. Then, with a low hum that built to a crescendo, the asteroid's defenses came online. Outside, massive energy projectors emerged from hidden recesses in the asteroid's surface. They fired in unison, sending lances of blinding light towards the enemy ship. The attack caught their pursuer off guard, its shields flaring as they struggled to repel the onslaught. But the enemy vessel was resilient. It returned fire, its weapons tearing through the weakened shield protecting the sanctuary. Alarms blared as sections of the asteroid were breached, atmosphere venting into space. "We need more power," Aria shouted, her hands flying over the ship's controls. "The main weapons aren't enough." Zephyr and Nova exchanged a look, then closed their eyes in concentration. Aria felt a surge of energy unlike anything she'd experienced before. The ship's systems redlined, pouring impossible amounts of power into the sanctuary. The asteroid shuddered, and for a moment, Aria feared they'd gone too far. Then, a beam of pure white energy erupted from the center of the sanctuary. It struck the enemy ship dead center, enveloping it in a blinding flash. When the light faded, their pursuer was gone, not destroyed, but flung far into space by the incredible force of the blast. Aria slumped in her seat, exhausted but exhilarated. "We did it," she breathed, looking at Zephyr and Nova with a mixture of awe and gratitude. But their victory was short-lived. As the adrenaline faded, Aria became aware of multiple breach warnings flashing across the sanctuary's displays. The battle had taken its toll, and the asteroid's structural integrity was failing. "We can't stay here," Aria realized, her mind already racing to their next move. This whole place could collapse at any moment. Zephyr and Nova nodded gravely. They understood the sacrifice. This sanctuary, perhaps the last refuge of their people, would have to be abandoned. But they were alive, and they still had their ship, their living archive of Lumina knowledge and culture. As Aria prepared for emergency launch procedures, she felt a wave of determination from her alien companions. This wasn't the end, she realized. It was a new beginning, for the Lumina and for her. With a final look at the crumbling sanctuary, Aria engaged the ship's engines. They shot out of the asteroid just as it began to break apart, chunks of rock and debris scattering into space behind them. As they accelerated away from the destruction, Aria turned to Zephyr and Nova. "So," she said, a small smile playing on her lips despite the gravity of their situation, "where to next?" The aliens chittered excitedly, their scales shimmering with renewed hope. Through their connection, Aria felt their answer. There were other sanctuaries out there, other Lumina who might have survived. And now, with Aria's help, they had a chance to find them. The stars stretched into streaks of light as the ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying its unlikely crew towards new adventures and unknown challenges. Whatever lay ahead, Aria knew one thing for certain: her life would never be the same again. The vastness of space stretched out before them, a canvas of infinite possibilities. Aria sat at the helm of their living ship, her fingers dancing across the organic controls with newfound confidence. Beside her, Zephyr and Nova watched the star-filled viewport, their scales shimmering with a mix of anticipation and hope. Weeks had passed since their narrow escape from the crumbling luminous sanctuary. In that time, Aria had learned more about her alien companions and their incredible technology than she had ever dreamed possible. The ship, which they had come to call the Starweaver, had become more than just a vessel. It was their home, a cocoon of safety in the dangerous expanse of the universe. "How's our course looking?" Aria asked, glancing at the holographic star chart hovering above the console. Zephyr trilled softly, placing a webbed paw on the controls. The star chart zoomed in on a distant solar system, highlighting a small, unassuming planet orbiting a red dwarf star. "Another sanctuary," Aria guessed, and Nova bobbed its head in confirmation. As they approached the system, Arya couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and trepidation. Their previous encounters with Lumina technology had been both wondrous and perilous. What would they find this time? The Starweaver dropped out of faster-than-light travel, the planet looming large in their viewport. Unlike the harsh, rocky asteroid of the previous sanctuary, this world was a vibrant blue-green, swirling with clouds and teeming with life. "It's beautiful," Arya breathed, marveling at the sight. As they entered the planet's atmosphere, their sensors picked up faint energy signatures similar to those of the luminous sanctuary. Zephyr and Nova grew visibly excited, their scales pulsing with brilliant colors. They followed the energy trail to a vast, mist-shrouded jungle. The Starweaver settled gently in a clearing, its hull seamlessly adapting to mimic the surrounding vegetation. As the hatch spiraled open, Arya took a deep breath of the alien world's air, sweet and heavy with the scent of unknown flora. "Stay close," she cautioned her companions as they stepped out onto the soft, mossy ground. "We don't know what." Her words were cut short by a sudden rustling in the nearby foliage. Arya tensed, her hand instinctively moving to the makeshift energy weapon she crafted from Lumina tech. But as the source of the disturbance emerged, her jaw dropped in astonishment. It was a Lumina, adult-sized, its iridescent scales shimmering in dappled sunlight. Its large, luminous eyes regarded them with a mixture of surprise and cautious hope. Zephyr and Nova let out joyous trills, bounding forward to greet their kindred. The adult Lumina responded in kind, its melodic vocalizations filling the air with a symphony of emotion. As Arya watched the reunion, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. They had done it. They had found other survivors. The Lumina were not doomed to extinction after all. More Lumina emerged from the jungle, their scales a dazzling array of colors and patterns. They surrounded Zephyr and Nova, chittering excitedly as information was exchanged through their unique form of communication. One of the Lumina, distinguished by intricate patterns swirling across its scales, approached Arya. It regarded her curiously, then extended a webbed paw in a gesture unmistakably meant as a greeting. Arya knelt down, gently taking the offered paw in her hand. As they touched, she felt a flood of images and emotions, gratitude, curiosity, and a profound sense of welcome. "Thank you," Arya said, her voice thick with emotion, "for trusting me, for allowing me to be part of this." The Lumina trilled softly, and Arya felt its response in her mind. "You have saved our future. You are one of us now." Over the next few days, Arya learned more about the sanctuary and the Lumina who called it home. This group had managed to survive the cosmic calamity that had nearly wiped out their species, preserving much of their knowledge and culture. With the addition of Zephyr and Nova, and the vital genetic diversity they represented, the future of the Lumina looked brighter than ever. As Arya worked alongside the Lumina, helping to integrate the technology from the Starweaver with the Sanctuary's systems, she found herself falling in love with this alien world and its inhabitants. The Lumina's deep connection to the universe, their advanced biotechnology, and their peaceful, curious nature resonated with her in a way nothing on Earth ever had. One evening, as twin moons rose over the jungle canopy, Zephyr and Nova found Arya sitting alone, gazing at the stars. "I suppose you'll be wanting to stay here," Arya said softly, trying to keep the sadness from her voice. "You found your people, your home." The aliens exchanged a look. Then, to Arya's surprise, they clambered into her lap, nuzzling against her affectionately. Through their touch, she felt their response, a series of images and emotions that brought tears to her eyes. They saw her as family now, as much a part of their future as any Lumina. And that future, they insisted, was not bound to this sanctuary or any one place. There were still mysteries to unravel, other Lumina to find, and an entire universe to explore. Arya laughed, hugging her small friends close. "A continuous adventure, huh? I think I can live with that." As if in response to her words, the Starweaver's engines hummed to life in the clearing, its ramp extending in invitation. Several adult luminae emerged from the jungle, their scales shimmering with excitement. They too have been inspired by the tales of Aria's journey, and they wished to join the expedition. Aria stood, Zephyr and Nova perched on her shoulders, and faced the group of volunteer explorers. Her heart swelled with a sense of purpose and belonging she had never known before. "Well then," she said, a grin spreading across her face, "shall we see what the universe has in store for us next?" The Lumina trilled in enthusiastic agreement, and together they boarded the Starwaver. As the living ship rose above the jungle canopy, Aria felt a profound sense of peace. She had set out to salvage old technology and instead had found a new family, a new purpose, and a universe full of wonders waiting to be discovered. The Starweaver accelerated into the star-filled sky, carrying its crew of humans and Lumina towards new adventures. And as the planet receded behind them, Aria knew that this was not an ending, but a beginning, the start of a journey that would span the cosmos and forge bonds between species separated by light years and evolution. With Zephyr and Nova at her side and a ship full of curious Lumina explorers, Aria Novak, once a simple engineer from Earth, set course for the unknown, ready to write the next chapter in an epic saga of interstellar discovery and cooperation.